On the episode with Amberly today, we talk about bridging access to resources for first responders, providing suicide prevention, awareness training, breaking the stigma of talking about mental health, unhealthy coping mechanisms, technology that can support mental health, and the different programs Legacy Place Society provides, and way more. So make sure you listen right to the end of this episode. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Constructive Conversations. Joining me today is Amberly Wrubleski, a fund development specialist with Legacy Place Society. Legacy Place Society is an organization that provides help for first responders who are in crisis. So today's a little bit of a different episode. This is a special that's going to be released in March, along with Podcastathon is having a huge release of podcasts supporting different charities. So I'm having Amberly on today. First of all, thanks for coming on, Amberly. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. We're super excited to get the word out there, and just based on some of your previous experience, it's an exciting conversation that we're going to have. Just a little bit about me and bridging kind of into what Legacy Place Society is. I'm the fund development specialist with Legacy Place Society, and I've worked in the addiction, mental health field for quite a few years and have seen firsthand the gaps in support that first responders, military personnel, and families see. So I understand the toll that trauma takes, not just in the individual in uniform, but it's also on the family. So that's why my role at Legacy Place Society means so much to me. As part of the development team, I focus on bridging the community with our mission, and whether that's through fundraising, through partnerships, or just awareness initiatives. That's kind of my role. So we're really focused on making sure that those who dedicate their lives to serving others also have access to the support that they need, and how to navigate through the weight of this work. So Legacy Place Society has been around since 1997, providing support across Alberta. We kind of span across Canada through our confidential phone lines. So we're busy out there.
That's great. That's such a great cause. And like we've spoken before. So some listeners may know I was a firefighter for 6 years. And you definitely like see that. Like I saw firsthand how like that type of job impacts your mental health. I saw people on our fire department, the police that we work with, the paramedics. My wife was in the military, and she's a doctor now. And yeah, same thing. They're sort of frontline workers. So that's a really great cause. Yeah, can you get into more of like what does Legacy Place Society like provide when you say like there's those supports?
Absolutely. So we have 3 different kind of avenues that we focus on for supports. Just touching on that confidential phone line again. We're kind of like a 2-on-1 specifically for our first responder, military, and veteran families. We act as a bridge of support to other resources across Alberta, but we also are there to facilitate those phone calls. So a lot of the individuals that are calling us are not super thrilled to be talking with the family assistance programs, their colleagues, their psychologists at the time. There's a lot of stigma that surrounds this community. So our confidential phone line gets about 600 calls a year, 600 to 1,000. And of those calls, normally 20 to 25 of them are directly related to suicide. So we're actually diverting that crisis and getting them the proper supports that they need. And then beyond that, we also are known for our transitional housing. So our houses are home away from home, and therefore either the individual or the family members to access. And we have a house in Calgary, Edmonton, and Red Deer. And since 2001, we've had over 60,000 nightly stays. So it's just, it's really showing the need that's out there. And it's kind of a silent crisis that the community isn't really savvy to. Those houses allow safe landing spots for people to kind of get their lives together when everything is chaotic, right? We had one individual who was talking about operational stress injuries and PTSD, and how the family was actually a trigger, just because their family was a sense of calm and everything around them was just chaos, right? So you're expected to go from such a heightened experience back down to dad level, right? And for that, that's not always possible. So people are staying with us anywhere from a day up to a few months, but that is a resource that is accessed quite a bit. Our houses look like normal houses in the community. It's a super cool place because there's individuals within the home who understand what you're going through. Due to our audience, they can't really access shelters just because what if I arrested that individual? What if I resuscitated someone? It's multi-layered, and that's why back in 2001, we recognized a need to implement these houses. And then beyond those two support pieces, we also run educational partnerships. So what that means is we partner with other organizations to provide some education to our first responders and families. And that can look like anything from wellness and marriage workshops or the applied suicide intervention skills training. We travel all across Alberta to provide our individuals that. It's pretty interesting because everyone pretty much receives tactical training, right? Nobody receives the training to keep themselves safe or their family safe or their coworkers safe in terms of mental health. And we're getting a lot better at that within the agency. So that's nice to see. But due to this gap, we also started a conference, which typically takes place in Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge. We're looking at Red Deer this year. But it's the First Responders Suicide Awareness Conferences. And this really facilitates conversations between our members and between our families and really allows a place for us to start that conversation. So we have leadership there and governments, and it's a good day to kind of recognize the severity of it, but also the resiliency that comes with speaking to the topic of mental health and resiliency.
So that's a pretty broad range, but yeah, those are all really important resources. I like the housing, and like you said at the beginning, like I can imagine people on the phone line or who need to access those resources really don't want to. So when I was on the fire department, there was a captain took his own life, and then I remember afterwards, an email came out and said, "Yeah, we're gonna have a counselor available on this date. So anybody who wants to come, just sign up, and and they'll be there." And then maybe a couple of days later, another email came out and said, "Yeah, we canceled that because nobody signed up." So even though I know for a fact people were having to deal with it and having challenges dealing with it, but it was that difficult for them to come forward and say, "Oh yeah, I should talk to a professional about this." So having something like that, like confidential phone line, I can see how that's needed and valuable. And and also you said it's sort of a hidden from the community at large. So like what can we do about that? Like how does that sort of change?
That's a good question. That's one that we're, after 2 decades, still trying to touch on, right? So there's a couple different areas that this really affects, and let's just touch on mental health and wellness as the number one piece. So when we think about our first responders, that could be our firefighters, our paramedics, our police officers, even 911 dispatch, military members, men and women in uniform, we tend to picture them as this like incredibly strong and unshakable people. And in many ways they are. What they do is incredible, but they step into the chaos when the rest of us are kind of running away from that. They show up on our worst days every single time. You'll never have to wonder if they're going to show up. And they hold it together when everything around them is falling apart. So we don't always see the toll that that's taking on them, but they carry that weight long after their shift is over. So sometimes we forget they are human too. And that is something that we're trying to get across through messaging is, they're not superheroes. And it's easy to assume that they're trained for this. but they're not immune to the emotional and mental strain of the profession. And the reality is that first responders experience some of the highest rates of PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicide compared to almost any other profession. And what makes it even harder is this culture of silence. So like you were saying with your captain, it's a common theme, and we hear that far too frequently. When I first joined the organization, I couldn't believe the amount of individuals that we were losing to suicide. You don't hear about that in the media because there's this culture of stigma. They spent so many years of their lives with such a high title that this is almost like a loss, not for the families, but for the entire agencies, right? And for years, there's kind of been this unspoken rule in the fields of you don't talk about it, you just deal with it. The old man mentality, we like to call it. But there's this fear that admitting that you're struggling makes you weak. Or worse, it can sometimes cost you your job. So think about law enforcement. You're struggling with your mental health. Now your partner doesn't want to continue the shift with you because they don't know where your mental health is at. You're responsible for someone else's life on duty with your partner and for society as a whole. So that is a huge fear aspect. Instead of reaching out, a lot of people just push it down. And try to power through it until they can't.
Yeah, and then it comes out. They try to deal with it on their own. It comes out in negative ways, right? Like there's. I was surprised to find this even when I joined the fire department because I had that perspective of, oh yeah, these are all rocket scientists and they can solve any problem and they're great. And then you hear the stories about sort of like the previous generation and drinking on the job, like getting in bar fights and these crazy stories, and like that's how they're from how I understood, like that's sort of the outlet that ends up, or even just like overeating or like whatever unhealthy, it ends up coming out in unhealthy ways. If you try to suppress it,
think about the adrenaline every single day that you're reaching. Say you're off work due to an operational stress injury, or you finally reach your breaking point. Your body actually wants to get and stay at that adrenaline height because that's the normal for you. So when you no longer have that, you turn to something like drinking, substance abuse, overexercise, risky behavior. And we see that quite a bit with our members just because we weren't proactively taught how to deal with these things, and that this could be a potential of your career, right? So at Legacy Place Society, we see this up close. We've taken crisis calls from first responders who are on the edge, who've seen too much, lost too much, and feel like there's no way forward. So yeah, again, that old mentality of, I'll just drink. I'll join another gym. And we're really just pushing down the things that are going to explode one way or another. One of the things that we like to say, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So it's not just them that it affects either, it's the families too. And we think about the spouse who watches their partner come home, who's distant, detached, struggling to connect after a long shift. Think about what pillow talk looks like after when you're just overwhelmed. Or the kids who can feel the tension in the house but don't fully understand why this is happening. These families deal with unpredictable schedules, hypervigilance, and the fear that their loved ones might not come home. So it's so many multifaceted layers to this crisis, and that takes a toll on a lot of our individuals. And what's super interesting is we think that as taxpayers, our money is going to the training or mental health of our individuals, but a lot of, like, let's just say volunteer firefighters or part-time EMS, they don't have access to benefits. So think about all the things that they're seeing every single day and what they're bringing home to their families, and they have nothing to access. That's kind of where we come in. We start that conversation. We start to talk about it. And we're making it okay to say like, hey, I need help as a first responder. Like helpers don't like asking for help. It's just a thing in the field, but we're helping.
Probably most people don't realize. I think it's like 80% of firefighters in Canada are volunteer. It's only major cities that have paid fire departments. So that's a lot of people. Yeah, and you're right. And there isn't like they struggle to get the funding to have proper equipment to respond to the emergency, let alone mental health training.
Insane. That's a whole other conversation in general. But one of the interesting pieces kind of with that is we're kind of advocating or championing this topic to government officials, really bringing it to the forefront of, hey, we do need support. Like if we lose all of these individuals who are keeping our community safe, keeping us safe, like what does that do to us as a community as a whole, right? One of the things that I hate talking about, but I kind of need to, is the cost of suicide. Stats within Canada are saying that a suicide costs $1.5 million to the community. And it sucks that we even have to put a dollar amount behind someone else's life. Like that's a human life that we're talking about. But think about the cost of retraining an individual. If somebody was 20 years into their career, what is it going to cost to get someone else there? How's it impacting the family? How much are you paying to put these families through counseling? How much are you paying to get your members who are on leave back? Right? It's a crazy thing that we're looking at. And I think that's why it's important to break that cycle of silence and offer spaces where first responders and their families can come together. They can decompress, they can have the conversations and actually heal. What we also like to talk about within our organization is that it's not just our first responders. Our families are the first responders. They're the ones dealing with the individuals on the other side of their career, right? Let's just say your shift is 12 hours. You're coming home. You still have 12 hours at home with your families. So vicarious trauma is a really, really big piece of it. And it's not about just the trauma that our individuals see on the job. It's the weight that they carry home, the things that they don't talk about, and the way that it kind of seeps into every part of their lives. So for the most part, families are the ones that see it first. So we're really educating our families as well on how to look for those signs. And our families are the best champions out of anyone who are really relaying that mission and that conversation, just because that's where stigma breaks, right?
Yeah, that's good to sort of tackle the problem from both sides. And and that's sort of what's the right term? Like the family ends up being sort of like unfortunate collateral damage, or even relationships. And I know it was a running joke on the fire department, like the number of divorces that some of the guys have. But it's like, how much of that is because of the trauma that they couldn't handle?
100%. Do you know what's wild? 70% of first responder marriages end up in divorce. 70. Like, that's insane. So one of our things is like, how do we approach this earlier on for that not to be a thing? Because it's not just a running joke within fire. It's a running joke within all of it. But think about like the shift work. Never seeing your partner. Your partner also comes home exhausted. Your spouse doesn't want to talk about what they saw on the job because they don't want to hurt you. Like, how are you supposed to talk about the most gruesome scene? And that's why you don't want to go to your son's soccer game, because you're decompressing, right? So it's kind of layers on top of each other, and it becomes a thing not within days but within years. And I think that's where a lot of the miscommunication comes from, which ultimately does lead to divorce in the long run, right?
Yeah. And so what does that look like when you say like you're sort of educating the family. Is it like tools that you're giving them, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So those who know us know that you get a pretty hefty package when you see us out in the community, and it really provides individuals a language to have communication or conversations with their families. So it's like, maybe a resource is, what does PTSD look like that is kind of different from what we would think PTSD looks like? Maybe it's somebody disengaging. Maybe it's somebody that is getting a little bit angrier over the small things. And it's providing them that language to be like, hey, what's up? How can I help? What we really want our families to know is they're not responsible for fixing the individual that's struggling, right? But you can support that. You can bridge the resources. Another piece that we kind of provide is the 50 tips to a good marriage. And that is specifically centered around kind of our first responder community. And we've gotten some pretty good feedback on that. We also have a registered psychologist on our board who provides some information as well. We have somebody that we can send our people off to have those conversations, just because us as an organization as well, we're not there to fix them. We're kind of that conduit to get them to the supports that they need. Another thing that we do, we have family camps every year. So this is specifically for first responders to come together and re-engage with their community. So we spend so long in crisis that sometimes it's great to just have a weekend away where everybody is somebody outside of the uniform. They're just people. And it's really neat seeing the kids have conversations with each other because they understand each other as well. Like, a lot of people don't recognize that the kids are affected in a lot of ways. So one of the examples I like to give is, let's just take somebody in high school and their dad's a cop. Think about how many times they're going to be invited to a party. Probably not so much, right? So it's these little things that we don't see as a community member or really think about, right? So those are kind of some of the supports that we provide to the families, as well as we will contract out other individuals who are experts on this. So we ran family wellness days and workshops to really educate individuals either at the beginning of their careers, mid-careers, or after retirement, because after retirement is where we're noticing a lot of problems too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's another good point actually, is that, once the job ends, like the trauma doesn't go away, or like those challenges. So what does that look like in terms of supports after retirement? Yeah.
So a lot of our individuals end up taking an early retirement or early leave just due to everything that they're dealing with. It's becoming a lot better now. But what that looks like is loss of identity. Who are you outside of the uniform? So I like to talk about it kind of as tribalism. You are taught to think a certain way. You look a certain way in uniform. You have your ideologies based around your career. So once you're done, you don't know who you are. And I think that's where a lot of the issues arise. So there are a whole bunch of supports out there. We work quite closely with Prospect, who works with first responders to actually get them a career outside of their career. So say you're coming from military and you have skills in organization and leading a team and all of these things that you were trained for in the military. Prospect is a partner that we like to refer to because they get to take those pieces that are part of your identity and shift them into kind of more of a civilian role, which is super exciting. But us as an organization, how we support that is we ran a pilot project actually back in 2019 to 2021 which was a rural property for these individuals to come to. So it kind of created the community for retirees, for active members, for families to come to. And we're looking at doing this project. So yeah, not redoing it, but building it on a bigger scale, just because we outgrew what we were doing and we recognize the needs. So that's something that's new and upcoming in the next couple of months, just because we need a place, a community hub for our individuals to gather, just because it is going to be ingrained in your identity. That's always going to be a conversation that you have even after retirement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And even so, I left the fire department 2 years, not even 2 years ago. And I experienced that myself, the loss of identity. I was like, I can't introduce myself to people. Oh yeah, hi, I'm a firefighter, right? And it's like, okay, what do I say now? I'm not going to say I used to be a firefighter, right? So yeah, and I also noticed that with the retired people, and they'd stop by the station and it's like, what's going on? Well, I don't have anything to do today, and they want to connect because they're so used to connecting to people from that same, like relating to people in that job. It's probably hard for them to relate to people outside of it who don't have those same shared experiences too. So that's a really cool project. What is the new one going to look like? So like a larger rural property where people can come? Yeah.
So the project that we are kind of working on, we've created a business plan and kind of the financials behind everything. We've been collaborating with different agencies. So fire, police, EMS, getting the experience and the needs directly from our people of what they envision. So this new piece is going to be called Legacy Place Acres. We're looking at the next year or so of securing a property with either existing buildings on it or a piece of land and creating it with our community. So what that looks like is, let's just say we had 120 acres. We have hiking trails, we have fire pits, we have a community garden, we have opportunities to chop some logs. The rural piece was really targeted because all of our individuals are so used to the hustle and bustle and urban environments that having a place to kind of disengage and understand who you are on a personal level was super important, but also to reconnect with your family. Like, how often is it that our kids nowadays are out there building snowmen or hiking anymore? It's usually playing video games and not really chatting with their parents. So that was something that we really saw as an organization as a huge need for our community, as well as our pilot project really shared the need for it too. So we are going to be starting a capital campaign for that in the next year and a bit here, and would love to get our community members on board with that, just because I'm one voice, one set of ears. Like, I'm a loud person, but you can only get your voice so far, right?
Yeah, I can imagine that'd be a great, a big effort to make that happen. But yeah, that sounds like a really great resource for people.
Yeah. One of the cool things too is a lot of our agencies don't have places to debrief in private. Like when something tragic happens and you're just expected to go home at the end of the day and just disengage, that doesn't always happen. So having a property where it will be confidential, where you can just take a breath, not have other individuals around you, like that is something super important, as well as bringing other nonprofits together who are supporting the same individuals. Like what I'm noticing is we're a lot of silo projects, all really targeting the same issue or have similar missions, right? So having a collective space for us to collaborate will, I believe, really change the generations moving forward within law enforcement and the first responder community.
Yeah, that's really important too. A place to debrief. And I was on a volunteer department at one point, and the guys used to complain, well, we used to all we used to have a beer fridge in the fire hall, and we would just have a beer after a call. And so you can't do that anymore. And then the alternative was, okay, let's go to the bar. But now you're at the bar. That's not, that's not a great place to be if you're trying to deal with stress. So that's nice to have.
We're trying to slowly provide different avenues to decompress. And we're human. We have to recognize that our first responders are human too, and they're going to enjoy what they want to enjoy. But having specific programs or specific areas for them to decompress in a healthy way, I think is super important. I myself, I couldn't even imagine going to the worst day ever and then hop into a bar after and then going home and railing about it, right? Alcohol is kind of a conduit to more of those negative emotions, and it's not really dealing with them.
Yeah, that's a depression. And I also noticed too, or sometimes we'd even be in a Tim Hortons and we're talking about this call and the public is there, right? And I'm sure they heard the conversation, and it's and his arm came off, and first of all, does the public need to be exposed to that? And second of all, you don't know who's there in the audience. Maybe they know, or who's sharing the space. Maybe they know somebody on the call that you were talking about. So, you have to be careful with that.
It's interesting because I actually heard, outside of our organization, but just chatting with a friend who's within the field of, they were talking about an act of suicide during a debrief at a Denny's. And the family behind actually was the family that lost their son to suicide. So it's there's that confidentiality piece that needs to be provided, but also that space that our community isn't traumatized by it either, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so Legacy Play Society has been around a while. How long have you been there?
I've been with the organization for about 1.5 years, so I'm a newbie. The first responder agencies are still sussing me out, but as you guys should. I just really, having friends within the field and having family members who have also dealt with these kind of mental health or behavioral health issues, it almost felt like that was a calling for me, that my responsibility as a community member is giving back in a way that will really change the trajectory of of conversations moving forward and the safety of our men and women in uniform. Just because, even being 1.5 years in, I'm still shocked every day of what isn't provided to our individuals. They risk so much for us, and we don't really think about it until we're the ones calling them. And then after they leave, do you think about them again? So it's kind of my thank you back as well.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like you're already, you have a really good understanding of everything going on there. And going off that question, do you see that things are improving and maybe within Legacy Play Society or in the organizations, compared to 10 years ago, what does that trajectory look like?
100%. So what is really neat that the agencies have been kind of incorporating into their everyday programs is peer support. So peer support is individuals who have lived, breathed, worked that exact job that our individuals are doing, and is kind of acting as a debrief partner or somebody to just chat to, somebody to grab a coffee with when things are getting really hard. Because the amount of times I've heard from our individuals going to a psychologist, I made my psychologist cry or my therapist cry. It's oh, that makes you as a person. It's oh, should I be more upset about this? So it's the peer support programs that they're putting in are fantastic. And that is something that I think has really changed from 10 years ago. The landscape around mental health and wellness is also really growing. Like, we were at a health and wellness event for Lethbridge Fire yesterday, and the amount of supports that they had in this room for their employees and the resources that they're providing these individuals now is incredible. The conversation is changing. Like, our first responder suicide awareness conferences have been around for about 7 years. And the more and more people that we see coming to these things, especially leadership, is super exciting, because this is something that we're recognizing culturally, but also, as a community. So some of the things I would say, like, moving forward, is policy and advocacy is a growing movement right now. So the workplaces are changing to prioritize that mental health. Like, hey, take your sick day. Hey, we're probably not going to put you on a 48-hour shift after you just did a 24 with only 6-hour break. The advocacy efforts kind of are pushing for mandatory mental health checkups, reducing stigma through awareness campaigns. So getting the spouses involved. I know that there's a lot of spousal groups that are now engaged with our agencies, or ensuring that mental health services are more of a integrated training right at the beginning. So we're working with the City of Calgary for new recruits of providing some resources right from the get-go to give them those tools a little bit earlier. So instead of fishing down the river, we're providing them that raft upstream, right? Another exciting thing about the landscape is community and grassroots initiatives. So we are noticing, like, nonprofits and community groups popping up all over the place, and they're really playing an essential role for first responders and their families. So organization like ours kind of exemplifies the holistic approaches that provide both the immediate support, such as crisis intervention and housing, because that's always going to be needed, and then long-term wellness resources. So I don't think we're ever going to not have a need for these kind of organizations, but I think we're doing a better job of making it less frequently and less severe. Like, we're saving lives in advance, right?
For sure, yeah. So, like, taking the proactive approach instead of reactive, and then like you were saying, what I got from that, like, you sort of cover the whole spectrum. It's not just like, oh, we'll help you at this point and then you're on your own, but like, organizations like that are there for the long haul. Well, like you said before, even like into retirement, like, you're talking to the recruits and you're talking to the people who are already retired. So, that's really great, and that's good to hear that there's sort of that positive progress in that field, because that's definitely super important.
Well, it's neat too, because we're recognizing that not everybody needs the same support, and not every support is going to work for that individual. So sometimes that, I think it was, you get six counseling sessions with your family assistance program. Sometimes counseling is the complete opposite of what someone needs. Like, we're always told, go talk to someone. What if that isn't the way your brain works? Like, what if taking some time off and going hiking and reconnecting with yourself is the avenue? So we're doing a better job of teaching both our members and our agencies that there's not just Band-Aid fixes to things, and that it is multifaceted. And one thing that's kind of neat is we're integrating technology a little bit better too into mental health care. So this looks like telehealth services, which makes it easier for first responders, especially in rural and remote areas, to access support, because that's a gap in itself. This allows them access to supports without it having to be a burden of travel or scheduling conflicts. Also, when you're from a small town, say that you are the one of 10 cops there, you're probably not going to go see the one psychologist there because everyone knows everyone, right?
Yeah, they see your car in the parking lot. Everyone knows you were there. Yeah.
What is Bob up to today? I wonder what's going on with him. So, like, yeah.
That's good too to have the technology. I remember I had when I was a firefighter, like an REMD app. It was like a rapid eye movement desensitization, and I was like, I don't need to go to a therapist. I'll just do this myself with this app. But I mean, it was good, and it was good that was available. Oh yeah, and then I taught it, and then a friend of mine was also struggling, and I was like, yeah, try this.
We love those therapies. Like, I heard that EMDR is absolutely fantastic. We actually had a firefighter down from San Diego last year, Ben Vernon, who just raved about EMDR. And he's a super, super big advocate for the firefighter community. He's lovely. But yeah. So again, technology, having those things at your fingertips, but also giving people the ability or the okay that you aren't a cookie cutter and you're not a puzzle piece that's going to fit into everything, and that there are other resources and supports out there that will help you. Yeah.
And I think like the important thing to mention too is like people need to put their hand up and say, yeah, like I don't know what I need, but I need some help. So then somebody can point them in the right direction. I remember like I had a challenge that I knew I should get some help with, and it took me 2 years. And then I called like our EAP line, and I was like, oh, I can easily, like, it wasn't even a big thing. It was like financial challenges. And they were like, oh yeah, we can help you with that. No problem. Here's an expert in what you need. So yeah, that's like a reminder to people, like there's lots of different options there, but you still have to raise your hand. Like, right. There's just, they would take that one step. Otherwise, nobody knows that you need.
We're super lucky with some of our donors on board that allow us to have a benevolence fund for situations like that. So we think that our first responders are super well off, but that financial piece is super common, especially when you're off work and on WCB and you still have a family and a mortgage payment. Is a lot of our donors allow us to provide those bursaries and work with the families, because we're not just going to abandon them and be like, oh no, go try this and this and this. We are really going to work with them first before recommending or bridging them to another program. Just because we want them on steady ground before referring them out, just because we don't want them on that cycle of support of you get passed on and then passed on and then passed on, because that's so frustrating, right? But I'm glad that they were good to you. Yeah,
it was good. So if people want to like support or connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
So if this conversation has resonated with any of our listeners, there's a lot of ways that you can be a part of the solution. You don't have to be wearing a uniform to support first responders, and you don't have to not be wearing a uniform to support your fellow colleagues. You just have to care. So ways that you can get involved specifically with our organization, obviously the talk about money comes out. We are a nonprofit organization and charity, and we run entirely on support of our community members. So whether that's a one-time donation, and thank you, Nick, you contributed to our cause. That's fantastic. Or becoming a monthly donor, every dollar really makes the difference in providing crisis housing, in providing suicide prevention training, and mental health support for our first responders and families. So that is one way that you can get involved. Another piece is sponsorship. So we love collaborating with our businesses across Alberta. Whether you are a small business owner or looking to make or like corporately looking to make an impact, we have different opportunities to sponsor programs, to sponsor workshops. events, including like our annual conferences. So that's been a way that we've kind of provided some opportunities for corporate philanthropy. And then volunteering. Volunteering is great. You get to chat with our members, whether it's helping at events or lending your expertise, doing pro bono work, supporting fundraising efforts. The volunteers are really the backbone of what we do. We have hundreds of volunteers who are able to take on the phone, who are trained properly, who are able to, let's go back to Bear's Paw property, come and build a fence and repaint a house. They're amazing. And then lastly, I would say just really spreading the awareness of this topic, because you aren't going to see it in the mainstream media. The funding that's available for Alberta first responders get $1.5 million out of $1.7 billion for social support. So it's very minimal. So spreading that awareness, talking about the issue, sharing this podcast, visiting our website, shooting me an email to have a conversation. I love to go for coffee meetups and really talk about the importance of this. So this helps us break the stigma and bring these conversations into the open so they're not so scary to talk about.
Awesome. That's great. So there's lots of different ways people can support. And then, we'll put links in the show notes to the website and to the different resources. So that's great. Well, Amberly, it was a pleasure having you on. Oh, actually, I'm gonna plug one more. There's one more. I signed up for the Calgary Marathon in May, and so my charitable support is all going to Legacy Place Society. So I set my goal at $10,000, and I'm doing it in honor of the captain that I mentioned. His name was Kevin. So I'm raising money. That'll all go to Legacy Place Society. So I'll put a link to that one as well. Or if other people want to run the marathon too.
Thank you for that. And I'm sure that Kevin is super pumped up there, just being like, oh yeah, more conversations out there. But third-party fundraisers are absolutely fantastic for this cause or that organization, just because it gets other people within your community excited about it and passionate about it. So we have quite a few third-party fundraisers, from the First Responders Rodeo up in Edmonton to the Battle for the Badges, which is a bunch of RCMP and fire facing off with the 18-year-olds AAA hockeys, which is super fun. But yeah, thank you for keeping us in mind for that, and wish you all the best with that.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. But thanks for coming on. It was a great conversation. I'm sure a lot of people will find that helpful.
Thank you for having us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.